Alright, so now we're going to do the layout. So first thing you want to do is pull out a tile from your collection that you have, because hopefully you've measured it out properly and you know exactly how many tiles you need and you have them all with you, because you're going to need them now that you have everything up and running. So I got these subway tiles, 4 inches by 8 inches. A standard subway tile is often 3 by 6. There's ones that are 4 inches by 12 inches. Those are really nice as well. And whatever you use obviously is totally up to you. There's way larger ones, smaller ones, but just go what works best for you. So once you have the tile, you want to figure out where is it going to land on my wall. If I just start putting a tile here and work my way across, what is it going to look like? So the easiest way to figure that out, I find, is to put the tile on the wall, leave a little bit of distance for your edging, and you mark it, bring it across. Make sure you remember to leave a gap for your grout spacing, and you need to figure out what your grout spacing is ahead of time, whether it's 16th or an 8th. So now this one, unfortunately, lands on not a great spot at all. You see this little spot right here? That's not fantastic by any means. Now the thing is, with this kind of tile, generally you stagger. So when we say stagger, you would go half, the next row would be half on the one below. You've seen it, brick pattern, a lot of people call it. So every other one is back and forth. You can also do what's a third stagger pattern, or even up to a fourth, and I'll show you that later on. So just because this one's a small piece doesn't mean it's the end of the world. Because what I like to have, if possible, is I like to have full tiles on the outside edges. It looks nicer. Obviously we'll need to cut to have half tiles here, but it's way easier and obviously faster to work to put a full tile on and keep going. Because then when you come around here, your next tiles, what you want to do if you have a small one here is you'll want to have a longer one there. So it almost looks like the tile becomes one piece, a small on this and then the rest finishing up there. And we'll get into that and show you a bit more about that. But your layout is really important. Make sure you spend the time to think it through and not just say, okay, close enough, let's do it. Because the other thing you got to worry about is the tub perfectly level? And 9 times out of 10, no, it is not perfectly level. So to rest the tile on here and say, okay, that's going to be the same by the time I get around to the other side of the tub, chances are very, very slim. Best way to check that out is to use a laser line, set it up, and then you measure from the line down to the tub, same the other side and the back. A lot of you probably don't have a laser line, so the next best thing obviously is use a level. Put your level down and just pick a spot anywhere here. So, and then mark a level line across, and then you check, is this distance the same as this distance? And then this to this. So these two need to be the same. If not, you know you have to make adjustments accordingly. So you want to start with your highest point, because if you were to start at the lowest point and then work your way around and there was a spot that was, say, a half an inch higher than over there, you would have a gap basically like that underneath your tile. Not a pretty sight when it's all said and done. So make sure you pick that right off the bat, the high point, and work from there. So that might mean that you have to cut some or all of the tiles off the bottom on an angle just because you got to follow the slope. So where you end up on the top, on your first tile, it has to be level, because everything stems off of that one. So that's really important, that the top of your tile, whatever you have to do to the bottom, becomes level. And that's not it for layout. We need to make sure up and down is good. So same idea. Now with small tiles it can become a bit more difficult, because you're not only guessing at your grout spacing this way, but you're doing so many of them that even if you're off by a little bit, chances are good that you won't have an accurate measurement here. So what I'm doing here is I'm figuring out where am I going to land according to this inset right here. And right now, that's a pretty decent tile right there. So it's not, if I were to have it where my last tile would land here, that means that I would have a little sliver about yay big on here. Not a nice way to finish. So this tells me that, okay, good, I'm gonna have about 2.5 inches of tile right there, which is plenty good enough to make it a nice finish. So I can start basically full tile to the tub and work my way up to right there. Now you also want to figure, if you have something like a windowsill, that you want to make sure that it's the same here, because you'll have, if you start here and work your way up, it's the same thing. If you have a small tile to finish, it's not going to look great. So you got to figure out what works best for both of them. So do the same thing, work it up, and if it is off, you need to adjust accordingly, whether you need to go higher by like 2 inches or drop it down an inch. Every job is different, so figure out what works best for you. Something you want to remember when you are doing your layout is obviously, and I just want to say this just to make sure that you understand it, whatever you do here, you want to continue that around. So your grout lines are going to be the same all the way around the whole tub. It looks way better. And I know that might seem obvious and simple to some of you, but just make sure you do that, and it looks just, everything works out better and looks nicer. Now the other thing you want to remember when tiling, and there are a few reasons for this, but one of the main reasons is it works. Start with your back wall first. Do the back wall, finish the whole thing, and then do your 2 side walls. Every guy I talk to, we all talk about, you sit around with your buddies, when you're not working, what do? You talk about tiling. And all of us start with the back wall. And it just easier, it works, and then you have the same system all the time. Now, one of the reasons why I figured out why it worked out so well, if you start with the back wall, and then you tile this side, you can see the way this happens. So this tile butts into this one. If you were to say start with this wall and then move to this wall, all of a sudden that changes. Now, while that doesn't seem like much to your eye, when you walk in, if this is like this and then this side's the opposite, there's something that doesn't quite work well with it, and you don't even know why you don't like it, but you don't. Just where this line ends up. So just as a side note, start with your back wall and then do your 2 sides. Especially if you're doing a border as well, make sure you do the same thing. Do the back wall and then the 2 side walls.